This idea of man provider, mom stays at home is very modern. It's very recent. And quite frankly, I would argue it can be. This is one of the points I'm most passionate about. The number one responsibility of parents is, all right, so what is the solution, you might be asking? Well, I think it's really important, and this is my next point, that we look at Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lila Rose Show. All right, we discuss on the show, as you guys know, the issues of feminism, masculinity, femininity, motherhood, fatherhood, and we've done some past episode on what can be very controversial, which is, should women stay home and raise their kids at home, or should they go to work? Is work good? What about childcare arrangements? What about the balancing of all of these things? This is something that is highly controversial, certainly online in certain traditional trad wife versus, the boss babe circles. There's so much debate about this. And so for today's episode, I wanted to tackle this topic and go through sharing my personal views on this, which I think involves some principles that are key as well as some nuance, but really provide a guide for any woman who may be thinking through, how should I set up my life? Should I set up my life to be that stay-at-home mom, no work outside the home period? I am the primary caretaker. Should I set up my life so that I can also have a career, or part-time career, full-time career? What about the raising of my kids? All of these things I think are key questions that need to be asked and answered. And whether you're married right now and you're working an arrangement, but maybe you lack peace about it, you're like, oh, I don't like the way we're doing our lives right now. Maybe you're not married and you're thinking about, hey, well, how do I want to set up my life in the future? I think this episode is for you. Now, if you're a man listening, I think it is also for you, because if you have a woman in your life that you love and you care about, these are the questions that she's grappling with, and that means that you're grappling with them too. So let's get started. The first point is we are at a very interesting time economically where many people need two incomes, or folks are feeling the economic pressure of the fact that it's very difficult to raise a family on one income in today's economic climate. And this is something that, interestingly, Elizabeth Warren, someone that I don't agree with on most things, wrote a book about way back when in 2004, a kind of a pro-family book too. This Elizabeth Warren circa 2004, I think, is a superior Elizabeth Warren to the one that we see today politically. That being said, she wrote this book called The Two-Income Trap. And the two-income trap is about the fact that today, well then and today, it is very, very difficult for parents to support a family on one income. They used to be able to do it much more effortlessly 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now it's much more difficult to do, but it's a trap. It's a trap because when you have both of the parents' incomes now contributing to the household, and we're talking about these full-time, heavy lift jobs, usually requiring you to leave the household, commute to a workplace, come back, there are all these hidden costs with having both of these spouses, both of the parents working, and not one primarily being in the home. And those costs are not provided for ultimately. And so what ends up happening is it looks like you're making all this money and you're actually spending all this money in order to have two parents leave their home and their kids to go off and to work. And so there's a quote here that Elizabeth Warren wrote, again, back in 2004. She says, by the usual logic, sending a second parent into the workforce should make a family more financially secure, not less. But this reasoning ignores an important fact of two-income life. The stay-at-home mother gave her family a safety net, an all-purpose insurance policy against disaster. If two-income families had saved the second paycheck, they would have built a different kind of safety net, the kind that comes from having plenty of money in the bank. But families didn't save that money. So she's saying, yes, maybe you have two, heavy hitting incomes, especially before the kids maybe, but you're saving the one income. You're not living and needing both incomes to pay the basic bills. She says the average two-income family earns far more today than did the single breadwinner family of a generation ago. And yet, once they had paid all the bills and expenses, today's dual income families have less discretionary income and less money to put away for a rainy day. Basically saying people are saving less money today. They're spending more money today. And there's this illusion that there's more financial security because two people are making money, and they're actually, compared to decades ago, there is less. And so the takeaway here is having two salaries isn't the cure-all for the household. The takeaway is there needs to be a focus as a family on building a financial trajectory that involves having savings in the bank, living beneath your means. This is where someone like a Dave Ramsey comes into play, and his advice is really excellent. We're not going to give all his advice in this episode, of course, but structuring one's life when you're deciding about how you're going to contribute and support the family economically, to remember that part of the role, I believe, certainly of spouses, but very much of a woman, is to manage the economy of the household. And that isn't just, making money necessarily. She might make money, but it's making sure that the money that is being made in the household is being, some of it, yes, spent wisely, frugally, living below your means, and it's being saved so that if there's a rainy day, if there's a need, there is savings in the bank. And I think that is something where women should develop financial skills to be financially wise about how to use money, how to make money work for you, how to save money, because it's not just about, I spend money, my husband makes it. It's about, we're going to utilize this money to save it, to invest it, to live below our means so that we are able to have a healthy economy within the household. I think there can be a temptation to go and, do the corporate job or do that job outside of the home, drop the child at daycare because you're going to be making, maybe six figures. And so you look at that money that maybe you as the mom is bringing in, and then your husband's bringing in, you're like, look at all this money we're making. Now we can, maybe upgrade the house, or at least afford the house that we want to get, etc. But I think it's really important to look at the hidden costs of, yes, daycare and the hidden costs of that structure of, yes, I'm going to leave the home now and, go work the desk job for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Because the reality is there are a lot of hidden costs to that decision. There's the cost, of course, of daycare. There's the cost of commuting. There's the cost of probably ordering takeout some nights, or, going and buying that coffee or that lunch because now you're out of your home. You're out of your kind of normal systems in your home. There's all the additional cost of food potentially. There's the cost of things, even just like work wardrobe, having to now dress this part, additional costs to be able to do the job that you're trying to do in this corporate office. There have been multiple studies that have been done about the economic value of the stay-at-home wife. And by stay-at-home wife, I don't mean someone who isn't doing any work outside the home in terms of like a job that she might be doing from home, right? So this is, by stay-at-home wife, I mean someone who's not going to the corporate office every day for, 8+ hours. But someone who is home, who's managing the household economy, who's managing the food, who's largely doing the childcare, et cetera. The cost to replace all of those functions of the person who's doing the cleaning, the cooking, the childcare, the household management, the shopping, everything, is about $180,000 to $200,000 if you had to outsource all of it. And so if you are off there, going to this job that you're making, let's say $120,000 or whatever it might be, but you're having to outsource all of these household things, including your children, right? Is it really breaking even? And what are you losing? You're losing so much opportunity with your own kids and with a lifestyle where you are more in tune in the really heartbeat of the home. And the point that I need to make here that is extremely important. So alongside everything I've said, I think this is one of the points that I'm most passionate about, is that the number one responsibility of a couple of parents is the moral education of their children. More than making money, more than anything else, the fancier house, a nicer car, a vacation, extra toys, whatever it is. Obviously, you need to clothe and shelter and feed your kids. Like that is an essential obligation you have as a parent, but they don't need fancy things or even, do they need the big house for that? You would maybe want those things, but your primary responsibility besides the basic necessities is the moral education of your kids. And so we have to be careful when we're making these economic decisions about how we're working and everything else that we're doing, that we are not delegating the moral responsibility for our children's education to other people because we're so focused on our work. Now, this isn't to say that other people can't support that. It isn't to say that, there can be amazing schools that can support that, tutors, grandparents, even babysitters that we really trust. But I think a good rule of thumb that I would encourage any parent, any mother specifically to stick to for young children is in their waking hours, who is with them the most? Is it you or is it a nanny? Is it you or is it their educational and extracurricular activities. And this is for, especially very young children, because quality time is important, but quantity time is important too. And I would encourage you to make it so that even with all of the work you might be doing, which might be important work and helping the household economy, and even the work in terms of, helping manage your own household, that you are still the primary person with your kids, give and take. Maybe some weeks there's something crazy that happens, but you are there the most amount of hours with your kids, more than, say, the school or the sitter or whoever it is. So what does this look like? So if your children are awake on average between, 75 to 98 hours a week when you take out nap times and bedtimes, et cetera, right? I would encourage you to be with your children, and you can be doing activities with them and even household work with them, but you are with your children as the primary caregiver the majority of those hours, more than a babysitter, more than a school, more than extracurricular activities entrusted to other parents or adults for your younger children. I think that's really important. As I get older, it's going to shift, but that's a really good rule of thumb. Now, this still means you have a substantial amount of time per week that you could work, and you could also create creative arrangements. But I would encourage you to make the majority of your children's waking hours be under your direct supervision and engagement, as opposed to another institution's or another person's. I think that is a really good rule of thumb to maintain that primary bond and to be that lead moral educator for your child. And we've talked about this on the show before, as those who are the OGs know. We actually did a whole episode about the harms of daycare. I am not a proponent of daycare. That is a bright line that I would draw to say daycare is not a good thing. They've actually done studies that show that the cortisol levels of children who are in daycare are higher than the levels of children who have a secure attachment in the home with a caretaker. And again, this could be the mother and then a grandmother or a sitter that's really close to them, but it's a different arrangement. They're not taken to a different household altogether. This daycare, this institution with other children, they're not getting the quality of care. And they've also found that children in daycare get sick more often. So I think that there are actual studies done that show that children do not fare as well in daycare. And I think there's a reason for that. Children need the routine and the rhythms of, I think, their own home. And they need their primary caretaker. They need lots of time from their mother, time and attention. And if you have another caretaker, they need to be able to build a secure bond with this kind of other allo parent, this other caretaker, within the same rhythms and routines that the mother has already established for continuity and for this feeling of security of the child. So that would be my case that I would make is avoid daycare at all costs. I don't think that's a good route. Obviously, there's some extreme circumstances where that might be necessary, and I think God will meet you through that and work through that with you. But I would try to seek keeping that young child in the home. Hey guys, we are now in Lent, the 40-day period leading up to Good Friday and Easter, filled with prayer, fasting, almsgiving, sacrifice, and surrender. I'm so excited about Hallow's Pray 40 Challenge to draw us closer to God this Lent. Hallow's Pray 40 Challenge is using the incredible spiritual masterpiece, The Way, to help us draw closer to Jesus Christ. The Way is a series of small challenges, encouragements, and exhortations that tell us how to deepen our relationship with God. What's very fun about the Pray 40 Challenge at Hallow is it's going to be narrated by some amazing folks like Mark Wahlberg and Chris Pratt. You'll also be hearing from Jonathan Rumi and Sister Marianne James, who will lead you through meditations and prayers. This is already shaping up to be the best Lent ever, with thousands of people already joining the Pray 40 Challenge. So don't wait. You can sign up and join for free by going to hallow.com/Lila. You can get the first 3 months free, do your entire Lent free. Download the Hallow app today and jumpstart your Pray 40 Challenge now. Go to hallow.com/Lila. My next point is there is no such thing as a non-working stay-at-home mom. I think this is a very important principle because I already don't like the language that our culture uses, this idea of working mother versus non-working mother. Every dedicated mother, every single one of us, dedicated mothers. By dedicated, I mean you care and you're putting in the attention and the time that your household and your kids deserve. You are a working mother de facto. The amount of work it takes for a woman to raise and care for her young children and clothe and clean and care for the household and feed and also do all of the work to develop them, intellectually and emotionally, that is work. That is absolutely work. And I would argue, and I think many people have this as a lived experience, that your work that you put into your very young children, especially if you have multiples of them, That is more intense work. It's more difficult work than most office jobs, than most day jobs. Listen, and I feel like I can answer this confidently myself as a woman, as a mother, my own experience and the experience of friends, that the work, the time, attention, quite frankly, it requires all of you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually to care for those little ones. And they deserve you, right? But your day job, it can be much easier. It's like an intellectual exercise, whatever it might be. It doesn't involve all of you the way that motherhood or even fatherhood in some cases can. Any mother who is engaged with her kids is working really, really hard. Okay. Similarly, fathers work hard too. I'm not saying they don't work hard, but mothers are certainly working really, really hard. So we're starting from that principle because I already want to deflect this misunderstanding that if you are, at home raising 5 kids and your husband's going to work, then somehow you're not working and he is. Like he has the job and you don't. No. You both have jobs. All right. The next principle is this. We must look at the history. This is essential. Know where you came from to know where you're going. I think this is so key for any society, for any culture, for any group of people. And I would argue that most people today, when they debate this issue about traditional mom versus working mom versus stay-at-home mom versus, daycare nanny, husbands in the corporate world, like the guy being the provider and the woman being the nurturer, they lack some key information about our own history of how traditionally these setups were done. Because I think there is this stereotype today that is basically this. Husband goes to work, kisses his wife in the morning, takes his briefcase, walks off, comes back home for dinner. Mother is around the house doing householdish things and the kids. And then that is the traditional nuclear family unit that we should aspire to. Guess what? The only time in history when that has happened really started in the 1940s, okay? Before the 1940s, there was no such thing as this husband who leaves at 8 a.m. with a briefcase and comes back at 5 p.m. That is a consequence of technological and industrial changes that happened because of technology, especially in the Western world. But you go back before 1940, and that's not how it went down. This is how it typically went down before 1940 in most societies. There was something called the Household Economic Project. And usually there was agrarian societies or these small towns and communities where certain households had certain specialized kinds of labor, if not farming, where they were maybe the blacksmith, right? Maybe they were the shoemaker, whatever, right? And they would form these small societies, these small towns. And guess what? The husband would not grab a briefcase at 8 a.m. in the morning and walk off and go to, the high rise down the street. No, there weren't even high rises. There weren't like offices and cubicles where men spent their, 8, 9, 10 plus hours of lonely existence. It's typing away at computers. Computers didn't exist. High rises didn't exist. Cubicles didn't exist. It didn't exist. This idea that you leave your home to go somewhere else, to go sit in a box with a bunch of other people in boxes, that is a very modern construct. That is not traditional, my friends. It's not. So what happened back in the day? Well, back in the day, one of the most typical things that would happen is you would have your household economic project. Our household, we're an agrarian household. We make clothes. Maybe you do a mix of those things. We are the blacksmith in town. And guess what? The husband would not leave the house and walk off and then come back 10 hours later. No, the husband would work from home. He would work from home. And guess what else? The wife would also work from home. And guess what else? They'd often work together. And guess what else? The kids would often work with them. And the amount of time they spent separate was much less than the amount of time they spent together. And you might say, well, there were gender roles where the woman would do the cleaning or she'd do the cooking and the man would go, hunting. Maybe sometimes, but there certainly are a lot of food prep responsibilities that the man would have, like slaughtering and maybe skinning the animals, like picking the produce and, harvesting the wheat. So it's not like food prep was some exclusively female activity and, just the men would be doing the like war and tough stuff. I don't know. No, they were sharing in these household activities. And yes, if it required special strength, maybe the man would do it. But the women were pretty tough too and pretty strong. I mean, as an example, churning butter is not an easy task. I've not done it myself, but my understanding is it requires a lot of muscle and grit to churn that butter physically without a machine. So there was a lot of physical labor and some intellectual labor for the whole family. So the modern idea of man as provider, woman as a stay-at-home mom, that's a modern idea. That is not a traditional idea, my friends. And I think this is such a crucial point because we get so caught up in conservative circles about, these women who want to work, these crazy women who want to go work, and these men who aren't working, the traditional role of going out and getting all this money, making all this money. I have to say something else about money. The way that we see money today is very modern. 100, 200 years ago, yes, money was important, but it wasn't like you were just trading time for money and then you just had this money and you bought everything and then you threw a bunch of stuff away in the process, right? Just a few hundred years ago, a lot of money, part of money was also bartering. It was also trading goods and services between communities and between, the small groups. And then in addition, money wasn't seen as like, I'm going to go trade 10 hours of my time in a corporate office for like, $1,000 today or whatever amount of money it is today. And then I'm going to go buy my stuff. You were actually actively working on the things that you needed for your household in that given day. So you weren't just trading intellectual time at a computer for money like we do today. You were actually trading work and actually creating goods yourself that you would then use or your community would then use. So our view of money today is so separated from the goods that the money actually can purchase. We don't know where our food comes from today. We don't know where our clothes comes from usually today. We have no idea how to make clothes or food today. Typically when something goes wrong or broken in our house, we're often hiring handymen or having to look up how to do it. There's not sort of passed on knowledge about how to manage basic things in our home. That is all modern construct, guys. It's all modern construct. So when you get to this question then, now that I've given these principles of there's no such thing as a not working mom, and that this idea of man provider, mom stays at home is very modern, it's very recent, and quite frankly, I would argue it can be destructive. It can be destructive. And I'm going to get into that before I share what I think the correct answer is with today's modern world. As you may know, porn addiction is on the rise for both women and men today. The porn industry is a $1 billion industry preying off of vulnerable men and women. The good news is that there is a solution, and our show is proud to partner with CovenantEyes.com. CovenantEyes.com is not only something to block explicit material on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop, but CovenantEyes.com is also a community to give you strength to choose good things instead of to choose the destruction of porn. For over 25 years, Covenant Eyes has been helping thousands of people break free and stay free from porn addiction. Whether you're a parent protecting your kids, a husband searching for accountability, or a wife searching for accountability, or somebody who just wants to make sure that porn doesn't make it onto your screen, CovenantEyes.com has got you covered. And right now, Covenant Eyes is offering a free 30-day trial specifically for listeners of this show. So you can go to CovenantEyes.com and get a free 30-day trial using the code Lila. That's CovenantEyes.com. Use the code Lila for a free 30-day trial. Start your journey to freedom today. What do I mean by it can be destructive? It is not natural. I don't think it's healthy for most men to leave and go sit in a cubicle for 10 hours. I don't think that's healthy. Physically, it's not healthy. You see really high drug use and even suicide and mental health issue rates in professions like law, because the men are literally sitting, and women too, but men are literally sitting in these cubicles for hours on end, just completely sedentary, just like they're a brain plugged into a computer, as an example, right? Or bankers, similar, very high depression rates and suicidality rates among, high intense finance careers, because often this is not involving the whole man and its whole body. It's involving just his big brain, right? And this very competitive brain work that he's doing. I'm not saying that purely intellectual work means you're going to have mental health issues, but I'm saying that people are more than brains, we're bodies too. And men, especially, they have testosterone, they have drive, they have physicality. They need to have an outlet for that. And if they're doing a desk job, a cubicle job for all day long, that can get really hard for them. There's an unnaturalness there. So I don't have all the solutions for that in this podcast episode to be like, this is the solution to our modern economy and how screwed up it is. But I think we should acknowledge that it's not the healthiest thing for a man to leave his house, leave his family, leave his, like the healthy food that they might make in the home and go out to an office, a cubicle for 10 hours. And certainly I would argue the same thing is not healthy for a woman to do. And certainly I would argue it's absolutely not healthy for a mother of young children to do. So I'm going to get into that. I also think it frays the edges of a strong family culture. When you're head of the household, the man is gone for 50 plus hours a week from the home. And when he's back, it's like the kids are getting ready for bed practically. There's a lot of missed opportunities for family culture. I'm not saying it's impossible to have a strong family culture. I'm not saying you can't make up for it, but it's hard. It's hard to have a strong family culture when you have a man doing something totally independent from the family, doesn't involve the kids, certainly isn't a project with the wife. It's serving some corporate overlord in an office 30, 40, 50 minutes away. That does take a toll on family time and family culture. Let's be real. And anybody listening to me, I know, would admit this. If you have that day job that requires you to work 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, you're going into a corporate office, you have to commute in addition to that, you know it's hard. You know it's tough to take care of yourself and be present to your family and have the strong family culture. Now, you're maybe making it work still by the grace of God. I'm not saying it's not possible to make it work, but it is not natural. It is not natural, the lifestyle you're living in terms of what is the natural needs of the human body and the human person. And it's certainly not traditional. It's not something that the human race has done for hundreds and thousands of years. No, it is a completely modern invention. So I'm sorry that you're going through this. And, even in my own family and close friends, many of us have these day jobs, go into an office, you have this lifestyle, and it can be really tough. And it is not something that makes it impossible to have a strong family, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. All right. So what is the solution, you might be asking? Okay. What are you saying, Lila Rose? You're on your high horse pontificating about how, it's just not natural. So now what? Now what do we do? Well, I think it's really important, and this is my next point, that we look at the ever-changing economy and both men and women develop skills that can serve both the household and make a difference economically. And what I mean by this is I do not buy the kind of conservative trad wife talking life of like, well, I'm not going to make any money. That's what men do. Women don't make money. That is nonsense, my friends. I want to read you about somebody named the Proverbs 31 woman. The Proverbs 31 woman is exalted as the best among women in the world in Proverbs 31. And it's basically the queen mother is talking to her son, King Lemuel, about the kind of worthy woman that he should be with. So this is the sayings of King Lemuel inspired by his mother. Okay. So this is like in Jewish tradition, the queen mother is passing on teachings to her king son to say, this is the way that things should be. This is like a healthy, life. This is how you should honor God. And this is the kind of woman that is the good kind of woman. Let's listen to who this woman is. Okay. Ode to a capable wife. Notice that the qualifier for her, the adjective for the wife, is the word capable. It's not the wife that sits at home and is just, not active or engaged in the economic or the practical affairs of the family. She's very capable. It says, a capable wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her. I love that. So beautiful. And he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from far away. Okay, so she's going collecting food. It's not just your average grocery shopping back then either. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and tasks for her servant girls. So now we're like thinking household economy here. She's got servants. She's got other people working in the home with her. She's making sure that there's food for the household. She's industrious. She's actually going out and shopping for the household and doing trade with the local merchants. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. Okay, now she's hardcore doing business transactions. She's literally going out and expanding the family estate. She is adding revenue drivers for the family estate. She's actually like weighing, is this a good investment? Okay, yeah, it is. I'm going to buy this field. I'm going to now produce wine and have a vineyard here. And this is going to be another source of income for the family in addition to providing wine for the household. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She's not what do they call it? A lilting lily? Wilting lily? She's not one of those. She's tough. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. She's a businesswoman, hardcore. Her lamp does not go out at night. She's hardworking. She's like, not a workaholic, but she's working really hard. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. So this has to do with creating clothing. So this is another aspect of the kind of merchandise she might be creating for both her household and to sell. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's very in tune with the needs of her community to help those that have less than she has. She is not afraid for her household when it snows, for all her household is clothed in crimson. She makes sure everyone has what they need. Her husband is known in the city gates, taking his seat among the elders of the land. I thought that was so fascinating, this line in Proverbs 31:23. Her husband is known in the city gates, taking his seat among the elders of the land. She's heavily engaged with the management and the economic output and economic concerns of the household. That's what she's doing. It's kind of like she's providing effectively. What he's doing is he's known in the city gates as an elder. So it's like in this dynamic, she is the breadwinner, you can argue, and he is the political leader of the household and the community. Now, that also probably has to do with potential warfare to protect the, to protect the community from invaders. But he's out there doing politics and she's out there doing commerce. It's a very interesting dynamic that they have. It goes on. She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies the merchant with sashes. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. I love that. It's so great. She opens her mouth with wisdom. She's a wise lady. She's kind. The teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household. She does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her happy. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful. Beauty is in vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the city gates. So she is well known, well loved, and well praised by all who know her, her children, her husband, and her entire city, because she is this economic and really moral force for good wherever she goes. This is the ideal woman, according to Scripture, Holy Scripture, Proverbs 31.
I love 7 Weeks Coffee because they have the most delicious cups of coffee, but they're also on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. And that's why they donate 10% of all of their sales, not just their profits, but their sales, back to pregnancy resource centers to help moms and babies in need. And already 7 Weeks Coffee has donated over $800,000 to pregnancy resource centers. Now, let me tell you about the coffee because I'm very picky about my coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee only uses the top 1 to 2% of beans in the world. They are mold-free, shade-grown, pesticide-free, and organically farmed. And right now, when you set up your subscription to get your delicious 7 Weeks Coffee beans right to your door, you get a free limited edition Lent tote to help you remember to pray, fast, and drink your 7 Weeks Coffee during this Lent as we prepare for Easter. So go to 7weekscoffee.com today and you'll get 15% off forever of all your orders when you subscribe to get your monthly coffee, and use the code Lila at checkout to get an additional 10% off for a full 25% off your first order. Plus, you'll get your free gift.
Now, you might be listening to this and say, well, yeah, of course, the stay-at-home mom should grocery shop and make the food and help out the neighbors who are poorer than her and do the soup kitchen. That's all womanly stuff, but working is not womanly. And I would argue that is completely incorrect. Work is absolutely womanly. This woman was working really hard up and down, all different ways. And that is spoken about multiple times. She's basically industrious. She's capable. And it's really just our modern concept of work, again, going to this cubicle for 10 hours, that has really, I think, frayed our entire understanding of what the male-female roles are in the household. My argument would be that the most fundamental male-female role in the household is not about the man goes off and makes money and the woman doesn't, and she just does household stuff. It actually has to do with, yes, a dynamic between them where he is more of a protector and she is more of a, yes, in many ways, she is providing, she's nourishing. So he's kind of this strength figure in the home, right? And he is the head of the household. He's the tiebreaker if a decision needs to be made that they can't agree on, which should be very rare. But it has to do with, I think, child rearing, quite frankly. Only women can have babies. Only women can nurse babies. I know, I've had a few myself. And that is something men can't do. And so any economic system or household system has to make a system for that mother who's having babies. Because when you're in the middle of having a baby, you can't really go out to the field and start, pulling cabbages or whatever it is. And you certainly shouldn't be going into a cubicle. I don't like cubicles, period, by the way. I'm not a cubicle person. But yeah. So I think our economic system doesn't take into account the natural human person and how we're made right now. And then in addition, it particularly doesn't understand the natural dynamic of a young mother and her need to be flexible and be there for her kids. And so if she has work to do in addition to caring for her children, This could be household management work. This could be entrepreneurial work. This could be, a product that she's doing, media work that she's doing, customer service work that she's doing, remotely, whatever it is, that work has to make space to prioritize the babies. And that can be sometimes difficult to do. Sometimes it is possible to do, but it can be a really challenge in today's economy and the way that our economy is structured. And so what is the ultimate solution here? And how should we be thinking about this, especially for women who want to have children? And this is what I would strongly recommend. I would strongly recommend that you develop skills and knowledge and expertise so that you can use your natural gifts and you can help provide for the economic well-being of your household while still being able to be a present mother. And this means that you have a job or you have work that is inherently flexible, that could be done from home, that you're not trading time for money, unless it's like you're getting an incredible amount of money for that hour of work and it like covers your bills, right? Ideally, you're able to create work products or services or goods that you can do on your own time, when you have the time, that have potential economic value that you can then trade or then you can then get money for to support your household. All right. So you might be wondering, okay, I like this idea of being able to be home with my children and not have to commute to an office and have a flexible job. But Lila, that's hard to find. How am I going to find that? And here are some tips for seeking out the right kind of professions or career paths that are going to be very flexible for you as a potential stay-at-home working mom. So here's some of these. These are from Forbes, high-paying in-demand jobs for 2025 revealed in a new study. This is what Forbes has to say about the matter. The first one on here is software developer. It says projected annual job openings, 125,000, 130K average salary. And it says bachelor's degree or related training needed. As an example, I have a friend who is a mother of 4 children who homeschools, who is also helping bring in income by doing data journalism at home. So she works several hours a week doing data journalism. It's a form of software developing effectively from home. It's very high paying, and she's able to do that in addition to homeschooling and managing her household. So that's just an example of how you can contribute to the family household. If you're maybe more data driven, maybe you're more into the technical side of software development, you enjoy that, that might be a really good thing to look into. Here's another one. Another one would be nurse practitioner. Now this can make, again, 6 figures. It says that there is job growth here. Annual job openings are in the tens of thousands. Now, this one can be a little bit tricky, of course, because this is something that you have to leave the home. You have to go typically and into an office to do this. But depending on your arrangement, depending on if you have people that can help you with your children, maybe 1 day a week, or you do 1 shift every 2 weeks, this could be a meaningful way to bring in income while you're not, again, away in an office every day, all day during the week. Here's another one, general and operations manager. So this is something that can make actually, again, 6 figures. This can require typically a degree that is a higher education degree, a bachelor's degree. But the benefit of something like this, again, you can do something like this typically from home if you're involved in helping doing manage or operations or administrative work. And again, this can often be a stay-at-home job. Here's another one, business operations specialist. Again, someone involved in administration, especially if you're wired that way or kind of type A, something like that could be a great side gig. A few more I'm going to throw out here, human resource specialists. This is somebody that is helping, with paperwork, helping manage, in the internal systems of human resources. Again, there are often jobs you can find that are pretty flexible that you can, again, work from home. I'm a big fan of media type jobs, of writing, that gig economy, of doing social media influencing and content creation, because this is something that you can absolutely do from home. You can absolutely do it on a flexible schedule, and it can also make some great money to help support your family. A few other things I'm going to throw out here. What Forbes has on here, heavy and tractor trailer truck driver. Would not recommend that one for you guys who want to be present mothers. We'll skip that one. Also, it's saying the pay is $54,000, which is not necessarily a great wage for a full-time job driving a truck around the world. Let's move on. Again, no dig to truck drivers. I'm sure there could be a career path there for some people, but I would not recommend that for the moms. Here's another one, accountants and auditor. I know several women actually who have a side gig where they are accountants for small boutique businesses, many of which are run by their friends. And that's something that, again, they can do for maybe 10, even 20 hours a week. They don't have to do it full time. It makes good money. They can do it from home. They can do it anywhere. And it's something that they enjoy, and it also helps contribute to the household. And also, when it comes to the gig economy, being a contractor, some of these sorts of gigs that women, working mothers can have from home, again, that are flexible arrangements, there are tax advantages. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not giving you tax advice, but that's something to look into. Examples of tax advantages can include, being able to write off a home office, being able to write off certain business expenses associated with your work so that you are able to get that, less of a tax burden when April 15th rolls around. So I would say whatever you're getting into right now, whether you're, a single woman or maybe you don't have kids yet, but you're married, I'd think about your career trajectory, about how can I do this career in a way that doesn't require me to be sitting in an office for 8 hours a day, and in a way where I can still contribute to the household, but be with my kids during much of their waking hours. And it is possible to create these gigs. It's not easy, but as the economy continues to change and the gig economy continues to grow, independent contractors, even like the influencer economy, there are more opportunities now to have jobs where you don't have to go into that cubicle for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. So that's what I would recommend. Now, do I say, well, you have to have a career, like women need careers? No, women don't need careers per se, but I absolutely think that women need to develop skills to serve their household, and skills that, yes, can be economically profitable skills. I think any woman needs to develop skills. And this isn't because we don't want men to be primary, economic providers necessarily, especially when the children are really young, but it's because you're not just going to sit on your butt and not do anything while the guy works hard and you're like, just bring me home the bacon. No, I mean, you might decide on an agreement where, yes, he just brings home the bacon and you just cook the bacon. And I don't think that's necessarily the wrong setup. That could be the right setup for you and your skill sets and your guys' interests and everything else. But I don't think that's innately more virtuous or that's innately better. I think what's innately the most virtuous is a system where you are able to be present to and be with your kids for most of their waking hours, to be able to raise them, but that doesn't preclude having a career or having a lot of significant work that you're doing. And this is where I know I fall into some controversy here, because there's certainly some people in the very trad wife type patriarchy world that says, if you're a woman and you're working, you're out of line. And there's zero biblical basis for that. And there's certainly not traditional basis for that either. I'm so sorry, there isn't. Prove me wrong. I'm happy to debate you on this anytime. Prove me wrong, because the history just isn't there, guys. And Holy Scripture is just not there. It doesn't back up what your claims are. So don't lose hope. There's absolutely opportunities out there in the new gig economy where you can find flexible job or occupation where you can work from home. It is more limited hours, and it also can contribute to the family economically. There are a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of different arrangements. So I'm not creating this video to judge one arrangement over another. I'm trying to say, actually, there's a lot of flexibility and fluidity based on where you feel God is calling you, what you decide with your husband, based on your talents, based on your interests, your desires. Just as an example, my sister and I are both very devoted wives and mothers. We are very happy in our being wives and mothers. We have amazing husbands, and we have very different paths. We're very deeply connected. Obviously, we're very close, very good friends. But my sister has decided that she wants to homeschool her kids. She wants to live in an area that is more rural, that is more, focused on, the big outdoors. She's actually out in Idaho, and her husband works from home, and he wants a job that is not going to require, many hours a week. He likes a lot of flexibility with his job so that he can spend more time with his family, do outdoors activities. So anyways, they've structured their life so that the cost of their living is extremely low compared to your average American because of where they live and how they live. And she's not working intentionally. She's doing kind of household work in terms of she does actually sell some goods and does trades with neighbors and things like that. But she loves working with her hands. She loves baking. She loves creating, clothing. She's really amazing at that. She's homeschooling. She's very hands-on. So this is her choice. This is how they've set up their lives. And then there's me, right? I am not some dressmaker the way my sister is. I could not make a dress the way my sister Katerina can. She's amazing at literally making dresses. I don't make dresses. I do, as you guys know, media creative work. I lead organizations, and I do it in a very flexible schedule where I'm able to still in the mornings take my kids to the park. In late afternoons, I'm with my children. Yes, I'm away from them to do the work that I'm responsible for, but I've built a system with my husband that I think is best for our family. And it looks very different. We live in California. The cost of living is totally different. It's a very different life in many ways, but many of the values and the principles are the same. both of these, I think, are Christian models. Both of them are ways to live, and not one is worse or better than the other. I have huge admiration for my sister and how she's doing it. Again, it depends on how you feel called, the talents that you have, what you think your family is meant to do, and the decision that you make with your husband's leadership as a family. I want to share something personal here as we wrap this up. So I have worked really hard on developing the organizations that I've built to be very family friendly and to be very adaptable for working moms. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not saying that every mom needs to go get a job. This is, again, not the point of this video. I think that's very clear. But what I think is very important is for women that feel called to be using their talents to support their household economically. And it's something that they, again, under the headship of their husband, and they're using some of their gifts, and they're also, working, but they're doing it in a way that's very child friendly. I think that those jobs do exist. And I think it's wise for employers, when it makes sense for the business, obviously, to make those accommodations for working moms. And so Live Action is a very working mom friendly organization. That's the pro-life organization that I founded years back. We are now one of the leading pro-life organizations in the world. We have a staff of almost 50 people. And of those 50 people right now, about 10 of them are women who are either pregnant and about to deliver, or who have recently delivered and are on maternity leave, or are working now with very young children. And the way that we accommodate them is, of course, we provide a generous maternity leave. We provide work from home at Live Action. We provide travel assistance that if you need to travel for an important meeting, or if you have to travel for a conference or something, then we actually let you bring along, if your husband can join you, great, or a babysitter, a mother's helper to come and have you come with your child, so you're not leaving your little one at home away from you, so you're able to be with your little one. And we allow babies in meetings. We have a lot of babies show up at meetings at Live Action. We have a lot of little kids that are around the Live Action work economy. And I think that that's great. Now, this doesn't mean that mom is like ignoring her children all day. Again, we have a lot of part-time moms at Live Action. We have a lot of contract moms at Live Action, and we have a lot of flexible arrangements at Live Action. But we got a lot of amazing work done. And we have a lot of, I think, happy mothers who are finding that way to use their gifts, contribute to the family, make a difference in saving lives at Live Action against abortion, while at the same time being there for their babies. It is possible. It takes some work, but that's what I would encourage other employers to provide if it makes sense, of course, for their businesses. I understand some kinds of businesses, like the military as an institution, or you're a truck driver or something. No, it's not mom friendly. So I'm not trying to make, the truck drivers of America, provide playpens in the back of the truck or something crazy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But for a lot of jobs, it is possible. And I would encourage employers to do it. So I hope this episode was at minimum enlightening, gives you something to think about. And I also hope encouraging. Because I think sometimes we try to fit ourselves into these very stereotypical traditional boxes because maybe we're lean conservative. We have these kind of biblical values. And so we want to do the right thing. But I'm encouraging you by saying this. Yes, as a woman, you want to be there for your kids. My kind of working standard personally is I want to be with my kids more than anyone else. So if I have household help, which I do, I don't want my amazing babysitter to be spending more time with my kids than I, right? So there's sort of standards that I have like that. And then I'm going to put my work, the work that I feel called to do, the work that's contributing economically to our household, I'm going to put it around in service of the children, in service of our household. And everything that I'm doing, I'm going to do it as a team with my husband, and my husband is the head. So I want him to bless what I'm doing. I want him to be on board. If he's not on board, that's a problem. And I need to either change what I'm doing, or he and I need to have a lot of conversations so that maybe there's a misunderstanding that needs to be clarified. So I think that's a fundamental principle. You want to be on board. You don't want to be like going a different route entirely from your husband. You want to be on board, and you want to be under his leadership ultimately. But if you're with a man, a good man, and he listens to this podcast episode, he does the research, he reads the Holy Scripture, he looks at tradition, he will understand, yes, it's not about this rigid woman stays at home and doesn't do anything outside of the home and the man goes off and provides. That is not a biblical or traditional worldview. So be encouraged, develop your expertise, know that life is work regardless of what you do. We are called to work. We're called to procreate with God, be faithful and multiply, and lord over creation and cultivate creation. That's the call to both Adam and Eve. It's not just a call to Adam, it's a call to Adam and Eve. So you have a big job as a Christian or just as a human being to work hard, develop the talents you have, develop the skills that you have, contribute to your community. If you have a family, obviously seek to contribute to your family. If your economic contributions are totally covered by your husband, keep your skills sharp and focus on cultivating the money that he's making well for the sake of the household, the sake of the kids and the community. And then make sure that your time with your kids is paramount, because kids don't just need quality time, they need quantity time. So make sure that you're spending that time with your kids, building those systems and routines with your kids so that they are the healthiest that they can be. I hope you guys were encouraged, and let me know if you want me to create more content like this, and also let me know your thoughts. You can always email me at lila@gtbmedia.com, and also drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time.
A huge thank you to our partner, EWTN. EWTN is the largest religious network, reaching millions of people with the truth of the faith, entertainment, and news. Check them out at EWTN.com.